The content presented is for entertainment purposes only. Some content may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. So one of the things I really wanted to go over in this podcast episode is just kind of talk a little bit about what I believe on some of the top 10 conservative views when it comes to political views and alignings. I think that's really important for people to understand kind of where I'm coming from, kind of what I'm seeing. Now, some of my points obviously are going to be pointing, conservative, to to Democratic, to liberal, and it kind of gives people an idea of kind of where my brain's at and what I'm thinking right now. And that's because I consider myself a moderate conservative, because I do have other beliefs and feelings about different issues that have come up as of late. So I did find a website which was really cool that actually had the top conservative values and kind of like a top 10, kind of not really a tier system, but just kind of the top 10 values of conservatives. And so I wanted to go over with those with you guys today. I'm hoping to try to find 10 Democratic views as well as 10 liberal views and kind of give you my thoughts and feelings on those as well. And I think it'll kind of be an interesting few episodes that I'm going to do for you guys. And I hope you all enjoy it. I hope these are something that are enjoyable for everybody. So the first one is the right to privacy. Conservative values when place emphasis on the need of Americans to be able to live freely without influence from the government or media. Lately, this has been evidenced in the conservative support for privacy on the internet. For example, Reagan.com offers an email service for conservatives that sources your right to privacy and allows you to communicate freely without being monitored by a massive tech company or the government. Now, surprisingly, this is actually a viewpoint that's actually very similar in Democrats and liberals. And so what's really interesting is that it's never been more evident that big tech right now and the government is doing everything they can to keep our eyes inside of our phones, purchase things, believe a certain way. And I really do believe that they're using different tactics in order to keep us believing things that are untrue. Now, I honestly, you guys have understood that I've fallen into some of these categories. One of the things that I thought was true that wasn't, but I don't know if you guys remember The Weeknd. They did a video for one of their hit singles, and the person that's the lead singer of that group had basically post on social media like different like pictures and like of him in bandages on his head and on his face and on his nose. I think he did some kind of either commentary or some kind of rewards show with something on his nose. So it made you believe that something was happening. And it was really interesting when it came down to it. There wasn't any actual surgeries going on. It was just kind of like a parody of Hollywood, with all these different things of getting injections and plastic surgery and stuff. And I actually fell into the belief that was something that actually happened. One of the viewpoints that I thought was true and ended up not being true was that about the president coming out and basically saying that he's going to overturn a lot of these marijuana charges against individuals, simple possession and stuff like that. Now, there's a lot of people that are in jail on a local level. I've actually looked at the statistics. There's tens of thousands of people that are in jail for even simple possession. However, there's nobody in jail for simple possession in federal prison, which is something that I guess I didn't make clear on the last podcast that we did. And so that's something that either I believed or it seemingly people thought that I believed. And so I just kind of wanted to clarify that as well. And so here's the thing that's really important, especially when it comes to news and journalism, is that we've kind of lost the core values of mainstream media and like have objectivity when it comes to sharing information and statistics and data. Now this is where, if I may put on my aluminum foil hat really quick. I kind of believe that there's some things going on to lead people astray and give misinformation on all sides, not only on the left, but also on the right. And even there are some extreme liberals out there that are also sharing things that are incorrect and factually incorrect as well. And so one of the things that's really important to understand is how we try to get through all this stuff. And a lot of it is just basically not taking everything at face value, taking statements with a grain of salt, because these media outlets went from journalism into political commentary, and so they can literally say whatever they want, and even though it's factually false or untrue, they can say, oh well, this is an opinion piece, instead of. And that's the thing that's really interesting about news and journalism, is it's kind of evolved over the past. I definitely want to say 10 to 15 years. It's definitely evolved ever since the birth of social media and the internet. It's very, very easy to convince people, because if you make it look good, people can be convinced one way or another. Definitely with the different algorithms that are going on with Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. And I'm hoping that, with the recent regime change of the Twitterverse, that Elon Musk will definitely continue to allow people to be on that platform to speak their minds and their differences in opinions, and definitely leave people alone when it comes to sharing their thoughts and feelings. And I think it's okay that we live in a day that people can share their thoughts and feelings. I just feel that we should have, just like police officers, we definitely hold on a higher level. And we definitely punish them very poorly in social media and in media as well when things go wrong. And we're not doing that with mainstream media and stuff like that. And so I think it's really important to understand that there's definitely some stuff going on, and they're using, our biological systems to create good algorithms to hack into that, to get ourselves to watch those screens and to be uninformed and to kind of keep our heads in the sand. And so now I can take my aluminum hat off, and we can proceed forward after that. So big tech's going to monitor or restrict. Big tech's not going to monitor or restrict themselves. That's something that's really important, because there's, unfortunately, laws and stuff are very retroactive, and so there's not really any big way to stop this unless we have these individuals that are able to speak out, that we have individuals that want to protect, the American people, and to hold people accountable to giving true data and true facts, not feelings and other things like that. And so that's something that's really, really important to me. And so what's really interesting, especially like when I've been listening to other podcasts other than, kind of reaffirming my personal beliefs, but one of the podcasts I've been listening to is The Best on the Left. And this is a very left-leaning, very progressive podcast. But what's really interesting is that a lot of these podcasts, both on the left and on the right, they are also talking about VPNs and how important it is to protect your data, to protect your buying power, and not giving up that data so easily to tech companies, because there's no laws preventing them from doing it as of yet. I'm hoping that eventually, there will be laws passed and they'll be held accountable for their shenanigans. But that's something that's been really interesting, that's kind of come together, not only on the right, but definitely more so on the left, and even liberals are even coming together and being like, yeah, this is definitely something we can all agree on, and definitely not giving so much access for these big tech companies for average Americans to utilize that against them. But I do think we should have a right to privacy. I really do believe that we shouldn't have to pay money to get these VPNs to protect ourselves from not only from nefarious reasons and for people to monetize our buying power and buying information, but also they're able to gain access to know who you follow, what your beliefs are. They're able to seemingly go into your Facebook accounts and to look at all your pictures and see what you're doing, and And unfortunately, that's not really information that's really pertinent to them unless they're like investigating some kind of like terrorist or something like that. And unfortunately, this is something that's done every single day, and our data, our metadata is being sold. Billions and billions of terabytes of data are being held and stored. And so what's interesting, one of the things that has kind of led me to believe this is the Google search. So what's really interesting about the Google search is that you can search on Google for one term. And if you search Google on, like, let's say, incognito mode or whatever, like, it seems like it gives you different outcomes as far as like what's going to once you input the data saying, hey, this is what I'm looking for, they'll say, okay, here's some things you can look at, instead of going, okay, these are the best sites, or these are the best links, or the best pictures, or best videos that best match the information that you gave us. And so for many years, that's kind of been the thing, that search engines are supposed to gather information and give you a list of stuff that best suits the information that you gave them to look for it. However, these different algorithms and stuff that are being created are allowing them to change what gets to you when you do searches on search engines. And so that's why people are going to other places like DuckDuckGo, like Brave, and many others that are coming out right now, to kind of protect themselves when they go and search, because not only are they getting the information back that they're actually searching for and give you the best results rather than what they want you to see, but as well as they're not collecting those searches and that search data that you're looking for and using them for different purposes. And so this is something I really feel strongly about. I feel like big tech has really overreached and have crossed way too many lines. And I think it's really important that we do have laws in place to keep them from going too crazy. Hopefully we'll catch up, relatively soon. Unfortunately, laws and stuff take a long time to enact, and this is due to different gain of functions. This is due to lobbying. This is due to other people like thwarting getting these things through, because they got to add more pork to it, and all of a sudden a law that could be described in under reasonably under, I would say, 25 pages. Now we have laws that are coming into play that are like thousands of pages. And then once those go to the floor, you basically have, I think it's less than 72 hours for individuals to read through it to try to figure out if that's something that they want to vote on. I really feel like, there's too much information. Like we're very much saturating ourselves in information. And unfortunately, the information is also spoken and written in a way where reasonable people can't reasonably read it. Now, I just say reasonably because I would say that most Americans could probably keep up with some of the jargon and some of the terms and stuff like that. But honestly, like even myself, like sometimes I can read some of these different studies and stuff like that in the medical world, and these terms seem like something I would have to go to a lawyer to kind of make heads or tails of what exactly is being said and what exactly is going on in these kinds of things. And I think we can reasonably speak things in a way and to write laws in a way that people can understand reasonably, and in a way where, all these different other pork stuff and other stuffing, get these laws passed. And of course, if they get shut down because there's too much crap in it, there's too much money being overly spent and lining other people's pockets, then people are demonized because they chose not to, because of all that nonsense that was going on with it. And then they're using that against people. There's a bunch of political theater and nonsense. It's honestly the best reality show we could watch right now, to say the least. And I'm hoping that will turn in the future, but you never know what's going to happen. So moving on, self-defense. Many right-leaning Americans agree that the nation's future is contingent upon protecting itself from domestic and foreign threats. And I'm definitely a proponent of someone who agrees with that line of thinking. I also believe that you should have the right to self-defense yourself, your family, and your property. I think that is really, really important. as well as keeping yourself protected even from the government coming and trying to steal, stuff from you. I think this is something that our forefathers have felt are really important, and I think they've worded, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and everything that has been created for our country in a way that allows people to protect themselves from tyranny. Now, unfortunately, we kind of live in a world today where these radicalists, both on the left and on the right, and even liberals who are trying their hardest to change things in the best way for them so they can have the most control over the people. And they're doing that through taxes. They're doing that through, putting more litigation on laws, like on gun rights and stuff like that, than they actually need to, that are unnecessary. There's a lot of things that are going on. But I think it's important for individuals and families that feel self-defense is important to be able to purchase firearms, tasers, and other tactical gear to defend oneself of life or death situations, to protect themselves, their families, and their property. And that's something that's really important too, especially when it comes to conceal and carry. I think individuals who feel like they have the capacity, they feel like they can reasonably, protect others, that they do take their firearms out with them. They do keep them concealed and carried, and they do have their permits and their time to not only know and understand safety when it comes to firearms, but how to clean, how to maintain, and also how to utilize the tool in a self-defense situation. Now, as someone who got to go through, I think I had a total of I want to say 15 or 20 hours of armed guard training. And I got to, talk and ask questions with ex-military, CIA, FBI, police force, and to kind of get an idea of these kind of situations that they have to, put themselves in. And it's honestly, especially when it comes to human beings who are imperfect, like people aren't always in their right minds when it comes to life and death situations. And that's something that these individuals train very, very hard for. Now, obviously, people do need to be held accountable for their mistakes. And, obviously, if they make too many mistakes or too many large mistakes, that's definitely something that they should think about, not having that person in those certain places. There's always, somebody needs to be the right person for the right job. And I think that's even clear when it comes to military and police force. I also believe that there should be some kind of system in place to keep certain firearms out of the hands of children or mentally ill individuals. Whether we have figured it out now or going to get it right in the future, something should be in place. And I really, truly do believe this. Obviously, we shouldn't have completely open laws and stuff where even your 13-year-old child can have a Glock 45 or whatever. I definitely do believe that there should be some kind of things in place where individuals can purchase firearms in certain calibers or certain uses for small game and medium-sized game and large game, and maybe those individuals, as their children, maybe they can, upgrade to those next calibers as times goes on, as well as they have, parental guidance and stuff like that. I think that's really important, because these tools can be used to either, get food for your family, or it can be used to destroy, human life. I mean, either way, you're destroying life one way or the other, whether it's animal or human. But obviously with animal, that's used for food, and with humans, unfortunately, it can be very sad to lose life needlessly. So I do believe that there should be something in place. I think simple background checks, just like we do for employment, is good enough. I feel like I feel like 14-year-olds shouldn't have handgun firearms, in my opinion. Maybe that should be for people who are 21 and older. I definitely did a whole podcast on arms and how I feel about that, so I won't go into too much more detail on that. But that's something I feel is really important. I think if somebody does want to have self-defense options, that should be available to them, just like just like these vaccines that have come out as of late for the coof. I think that anybody who wants it, that they should be able to take it, and I think that we should not force that upon people, as well as we shouldn't force mandates on individuals to not do their businesses and stuff like that. And it's really sad that so many people lost their businesses while other larger companies profit off of the situation. Justice. All Americans deserve to live freely and equally. So I have some more feelings on this. And so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more after I say these things, because my feelings on equality and what that means is starting to kind of change a little bit, because there's some inherent and very observable things that clearly make us unequal. And so, I'll talk about that after we go through this. So I believe in treating all people equally, with the understanding that we are born into this life unequal. We aren't... Oh, I actually did start talking about this. We aren't raised equal, and most of our lives we will be unequal to our peers. I think it's difficult to give people equal opportunity, but it is vastly more difficult to give an equal outcome. So this is something that's really interesting, because I've been thinking about this a lot, especially the last few days, is that when we are born, as small babies and children, and we grow up, we are in an unequal situation. Like, we don't have perfect parents. And I hate to say that, but most of us don't have perfect parents. I'm just realizing this as of late. We're not born into, most of us are not born into a lot of money. I would probably even go out to say that most of us are in the lower income or even median income when it comes to, jobs and stuff like that. Most Americans won't be in high-paying jobs. Like, most people will make less than, $60,000 a year, which even $60,000 a year is pretty low, in my opinion. We don't have a lot of this equality that people are trying to strive for. Now, I believe in treating people equally. Like, when you go out into the world and you talk to somebody, obviously you don't want to just start, talking bad about somebody and stuff. I feel like, as a human being, I want to treat people, with humanity and, with love and respect and with grace and, forgiveness. Like, I think those are definitely important things to have when it comes to treating other people, like, as you're like, as well as you would, a good brother or a good sister. But unfortunately, it's that we just live in a world where nobody is equal. Like for instance, like, let's say I go and I take a job, and in this job, I'm working in a warehouse, and I am doing forklift driving in the warehouse, and I'm picking stuff up, moving it, putting it on trucks and stuff like that. Now, I just started, and I've only been working for 3 months, so less than 90 days. Now another person who has the same job title as forklift driver has been working there for 20 years, or let's say 3 years. And what's interesting is, because of your time in the company, or whether you get more certificates or whether you get more education, now you're getting paid a little bit more. So why is it that I can't have equal pay because of just because the other person has been here a little bit longer, has a little bit more education, or has a little bit more certificates of saying, hey, I'm smarter now, or I've gotten better at my job. It's difficult to say that now, because of everything that should be equal, I should get paid exactly what that person has been getting paid, since they've been working here for 3 years. I think that's disingenuous. I think that's just the way that it is, unfortunately. Well, I mean, fortunately, because, like, if I put, the time and effort into it, only being there for 3 months, but I bide my time, I work my way up as far as, like, being pleasing to other people, or work my way up as showing of how great my work ethic is, or how I am on time every day for work and I don't take a lot of time off for sick days, or just cut out of work just because I want to, or because I have to go see that show at the Foo Fighters in Salt Lake, or whatever the case may be. We're pretty much unequal anywhere and in everything. But I do believe in treating people equally, like as human beings. Like, we're all part of the human race, and it doesn't matter, what sex you are, what color your skin is. It doesn't matter. We should just treat each other well. But it's difficult to give an equal opportunity to everybody without a lot of litigation, without a lot of money, without a lot of government involvement. And it's vastly more difficult to give equal outcome without slipping into tyranny. And these are these things that I'm just starting to come up with, as of late. I believe that if people are struggling to get the grades they need to achieve to get into a good school, hard work is the basis of getting out of that situation. Also, smart planning. What does Ben Shapiro say in order to get yourself, like, a surefire way to get yourself out of poverty level in America? Graduate high school, wait to start having children till after you're married, and keep a job. Those three things, you'll be out of the poverty level. Now, does that mean that it's perfect? No. Like, there's people that are just going to really struggle, and, whatever the case may be. The next is extra help through tutoring. So, like, let's say you have an individual who's struggling to keep their grades up, but they want to get good grades because they want to get into a better school when they start going to college. The best way to get out of that situation is obviously work harder, put more hours into studying, and then maybe get some help through tutoring. I think that's definitely a viable option to get that person to that next level, so that when they do apply for these schools, they get to the school that they're hoping to get into. Now, if the individual chooses not to excel, so let's say they just want to slack off, they just want to do sports and focus on that, they don't want to do their homework or pass their classes. I mean, it's their own fault, unfortunately. And people should be accountable for their decisions. So we should only admit those who deserve the admittance rather than discriminate based on the color of your skin. Excuse me. I need to clean. It's dusty down here. Therefore, I believe we should have sex, skin color, finances, background, family trauma or childhood trauma or discrimination. All of that stuff need to be out of the process when it comes to applying for things like jobs, when it comes to things like applying for admittance into certain colleges and schools. Like, it should be a blind application submission process. And those who do apply can only write essays on their achievements. I also believe that this is when it comes to resume submissions. Like, I just spoke about this a podcast or two ago, where I believe there should be a number associated with that resume, but anything that would indicate, sex, race, skin color, like background, discrimination, trauma, all that stuff should be just left out, and just have, these are the things that I have done. These are the different companies that I worked for. This is what I did in those capacities. This is where I went from and where I got to, as far as like doing better and better in those positions. I think those are more important than saying, well, I am a discriminated person, or I grew up poor. Because a lot of people can say that. And I think it's really disingenuous to say, oh, well, it's only these communities that have different color skin that are having. No, everybody is having this. I grew up poor. Okay. My mother, bless her soul, was a single mother working 3 to 5 jobs every week, 7 days a week sometimes. And we were babysat quite often in order for her to make enough money to keep a roof over our heads, food on the table, clothes on our backs, and give us a place with love. Now, when it comes to white privilege, if I may, for just a few moments, if I'm benefiting from white privilege, I would like to see where the benefits are. I personally have had to work. I just turned 40 just recently, and I've had to work one or two jobs in order to make ends meet. I haven't been able to, get into a career position and to reasonably make so much money that I wouldn't have to worry about it. Even the time when I was installing security systems and I was a tech manager at that time, and I was making, like, the last year or two, I think I was making decent enough money where we're starting to, pay off credit cards. We were starting to, it was starting to get to the point where I was making enough where we were starting to get ahead and starting to get out from under things. And unfortunately, I was pushed out of that position. And unfortunately, it was a hostile takeover, basically, in my opinion. And unfortunately, I had to leave that position because it was at a point in my life that if I did not get out of that, there was bad consequences that was going to happen. Whether it was me doing those consequences to other people or doing consequences to myself. I was not in a very happy place when that happened 3 years ago. So I don't want it because I haven't been on the higher end. Like, I've literally been on maybe the higher end of the poor or just in the median income, or lower. And I'm just getting by. Like, even now, unfortunately, in rural Utah, you can't get something more than $14 an hour, $16 an hour. And you can't make that and take care of, like, your family on that. That's just ridiculous. That's, to lack of a better word, that's slave wage labor, unfortunately. But I grew up poor. So I'm just trying to figure out what this white privilege is, if it's real or if it's not, and how can I benefit from it? Because I could use some benefits right now, and if I could get a leg up in the world because of the color of my skin, I mean, why wouldn't I use it? But unfortunately, I just don't have that. So I don't know where I missed that boat, but here we are. So limited government. Most conservatives' values are driven by the idea that America functions best when its citizens can govern themselves with limited influence from the federal government. The federal government is currently way too big. It's too big for its britches, as we could say. We are at an unprecedented time where the people are afraid of their government. We're afraid of these big tech companies, and rather than the government being afraid of its people, local government should be in proportion bigger than the federal government. And unfortunately, it's not. It's a lot smaller. The tax budget of funds coming in should be balanced, and that's something that we're not doing nowadays. Like, the government can basically print money to to their heart's desires. There's nothing backing it except for we're hoping that it means something. And so there are some things I feel like we should go back to. And I think one of the things that we should go back to, that which was discontinued, I think, in the 1930s. When did we stop backing the dollar with gold? I think it abandoned this thoughts during Nixon's time, I believe. 1933. So somewhere around 1933, the government took its practice off the books. Since then, the dollar has been floating freely in terms of its value in relation to precious metals like gold and silver. Like, that's nuts. So we really don't have anything backing to say that we do have some kind of value when it comes to our country. I think we should go back to the 1930s, or I guess the 1800s at this point. I think it was the 70s. Was it 18? From 1879 to 1930, the U.S. dollar was backed by gold. So I think we should go back to that system. I think because we removed ourselves from that system, that the dollar plummeted. Now, has economies gone up and gone down during that time? Yes, absolutely. But if there's something backing the dollar, then there's something that it's attached to. And when there's that value, people believe in that value. unfortunately, we're kind of in this nebulous time where the dollar just basically only feels like it's worth something if we think it's worth something. So this is why I think it's really important to back the dollar again. I think it's really important that we go back to the economics, just the economics of the mid 1900s, where families, a family of 3 with 2 dogs and a house and 2 cars can reasonably be held up by one income. It doesn't necessarily have to mean the husband or the wife. It doesn't really matter. I'm just saying, like, in general, I think it's really important for people to be able to make enough to take care of, their needs with 60% of their income. And then the 40% is for saving, it's for investing, it's for medical purposes, it's for saving for emergencies, it's been, getting out of debt and stuff like that. And this is where I believe very strongly about debt, where I feel like continuing to increase the ability for Americans to get into more debt and to pay more money back on those debts is not helping the American way of life. And so I feel like things like personal loans, things like payday loans, things like credit cards should be completely done away with. Now, unfortunately, we're in a place right now where inflation has skyrocketed the cost of living, the cost of food, the cost of gas, the cost of vehicles, that I think it would be kind of difficult to take away things like auto loans and home loans. But I think payday loans and credit cards and like personal loans like that of like small amounts, I think we should just do away with all of those. And I think with backing the dollar and get rid of some of those things, I think the dollar would be bolstered a lot more. Now, would some things collapse when it comes to these smaller bank loans and these smaller personal loans and payday loans? Yeah, some of those businesses will all those businesses will pretty much go out and go the way of the buffalo, as we say, although Buffalo is doing great right now. But I feel like that would be better for people, because what really sucks? What really sucks is if you're tens of thousands of dollars in debt and you have 20 phone calls a week of these debtors, calling you 2-3 times a week saying, "Hey, where's our money?" I don't want to be a slave to that. I really don't. And I don't think Americans in general want to be a slave in that. And unfortunately, we're in a place where things are so freaking expensive. People feel like they have to go on debt. They have to go on credit in order to purchase and, buy things and then slowly pay it off. Most Americans can't take care of buying $1,000 worth of new tires for their vehicle all of a sudden. Most people can't pay $1,000 medical bill that comes out all of a sudden. Oh, I got a toothache. Oh, there's 2 root canals you got to get done. That's $1,000. Tommy or Timmy or Susie break their arm. They have to go to the hospital to get it reset and casted, and now we have to pay the bill for that, which is astronomical when it comes to the medical field. These are things I feel really passionate about, and whether that's a conservative view or not, I don't know. That's just my view of things. I really feel like we should be paid overly what we need so that we can pay for these kinds of things. I feel like the minimum wage is a very important thing, and I think that should be brought to a point where it reflects an individual student who is working full-time and going to school full-time and are able to take care of themselves and not have to go into debt for school. That's the other thing too. Nobody can get out from under their school debts. Like if you go bankrupt and you file for bankruptcy, guess who's still paying their loans for school? You are. And that's something I feel like that's really important. I don't think we should have these debts hanging over our head. Now, again, I think, car auto loans and mortgage loans, we're just kind of in the place where we kind of have to do those things, unfortunately. I would kind of hope that if we change those kinds of things, maybe eventually we can get to the point where we can save, reasonably for purchasing homes outright and purchasing cars outright and, purchasing toys outright when we get to that point where we're making enough money. But we're just not in that place right now. And we definitely need to preserve the American dream and the American way of life. And we definitely need to get more money into the consumers' pockets and the American people's pockets. And That's how I feel about it. Let's see where we're at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 more points. I'm already 40 minutes in. This might have to be a 2-parter. Jeepers, Judy. All right. So, limited government. Most top conservative values are driven by the idea that American functions best when its citizens are governing themselves. Oh, we just did that one. Excuse me. Self-help. Conservatives recognize that Americans have the capacity to lift themselves out of negative situations and should invest in self-employment instead of relying on government or other sources. And like I was talking before, if I would have to put a number to it out of 100, I'd probably say I'm about 90-10. Like 90%, 10% on this point, because on this point, as I believe in the greater majority of the American population is or can become self-reliant, I also understand that there are some individuals that need a leg up rather than a handout. Part of that needs to not have the handout available so people have to get it done, but also for those poor, unfortunate souls that need to get the help that they need medically, mentally, and physically so they can get to that next part of their lives. 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 1, 2, 3. I should have 4, 5. I should have. Yeah, I probably should have numbered these so that I kind of knew where I was at. I think we're only going to get halfway through this, to be honest. Because for my hour mark, I'm already at 40 minutes. So, all right. So let's talk about this for a minute. Because I do believe that the vast majority of individuals can and should work hard and get out of the situation that they're in and improve themselves. Whether that's going through different things like self-help classes, whether it's things like getting self-help books, whether that's going to talk to an individual that can help you through things, whether you have, childhood trauma or whether you have anxiety or whatever the case may be, to get the help that you need. Now, obviously, going back to what we were just talking about, I think it's really important to be able to pay people enough to where they can get the help that they need. And I think that it's something that they need to be paid enough where they can be self-reliant and they don't have to worry about going into debt or severely hinder their income because they have to pay, basically another mortgage in order to go and get the self-care that they need when it comes to mental issues. Now, on the other hand, we don't just want to give a handout to everybody. And that's something that's really, that focus definitely needs to come out and be focused on. Now, part of the things that I talked about, and I've kind of came to a better conclusion when it comes to this idea. But a few podcasts ago, we kind of talked about the homeless population and what's going on with that. Now, a lot of these individuals are habitually homeless because they choose to be, not because it's a bad habit or because of whatever. A lot of these individuals want to be homeless. They don't want to be associated with the system. They don't want to be associated with the government. They want to be accountable for their own selves and just hope that other people will be kind enough to give handouts to them. Now, on the other hand, are there individuals who are suffering, who are unable to take care of themselves, and who are in a place where it's not reasonable for them to, as the term goes, pull themselves up by their bootstraps? There are individuals out there. I think it's still a very small percentage of those individuals. But obviously, the war on drugs is not working. These individuals are cracked out and coked out. They are, they're taking fentanyl. I think fentanyl is now up to the same death rate for 18 to 45-year-olds as much as, the deaths of cancer, heart attacks, things like that. It's definitely a growing epidemic that a lot of people are definitely talking about nowadays, which is good. But these individuals definitely need to get the help that they need. And so, whether that's, to criminalize homelessness and those that are habitually strung out on drugs and addicted to opiates, or whatever the case may be, to get these guys court ordered into a program that can rehabilitate them and get them back into their communities and being a part of society once again. A part of that just might be a different change of outlook of life. Some people might need something as far as to be in there for months on end to not only get out of, their addiction, but also to get out of from underneath their current beliefs and ideologies in order to get back into the swing of things. Now, this is where I think it's really important that, if you're washing dishes, if you're washing dishes at Chili's, or Pizza Hut or whatever the case may be, you should be paid a fair wage, in order to take care of yourself. Like, you should be able to live off of the most mildest income. Now, unfortunately, a lot of these states are still under $10 an hour when it comes to minimum wage laws. Excuse me. And with these laws, they basically are to reflect a fair wage for somebody, at the bottom of these different places. Now, the only bad thing about that is that going up in those and getting paid more, a lot of these different places are only giving you 25, 50 cents, maybe $1, a year if you did good. But if you're only making $7.25 an hour, which is the minimum wage, I believe, in Utah currently, is that correct? Utah minimum wage 2022. Yep, still $7.25 an hour. Minimum wage 40 hours. Minimum yearly is $15,080. Minimum wage $290 a week. That's going to be really difficult to live off of. That's less than $1,000 a week. That's difficult. And it's been the minimum wage since 2019, it looks like. I think since 2019 it's been that. Excuse me, it's been the same since 2009. The last increase was 2008 when it went from $6.55 to $7.25. Nobody can live reasonably on $7.25 an hour. Now, if you have a huge family and you have kids that are 16 or 18 years old and they're going to contribute to the family, maybe you have all these individuals go and work and all of their funds go directly into the fund of, taking care of the family. And maybe that'll work. Some of the Latino people, when I was working, putting together cabinets and working in different warehouses and stuff, that's what a lot of them do in order to get to the United States and to not only send money back, but to take care of themselves while they're in this country. They all work, these minimum wage jobs, and they have 4, 5, 6, even 10 different incomes coming in because their families are large. They all try to live as best as they can under one roof. So there's usually multiple families inside of some of these homes, and they do very well because they do this. Unfortunately, that's not realistic. I think somebody who's single, who's just moved out of the house to go to school full time and to work full time, to pay for their classes and everything, I feel like they should be paid a lot more. Now, what's that going to look like? Now, again, my feelings on increasing the value of the dollar and decreasing the availability for debt, I should say meaningless debt, things like credit cards and personal loans and payday loans and other nonsense that are out there right now. I think bolstering the dollar, backing it with gold, and getting rid of some of these things will get more money into people's pockets. I feel like reducing taxes and making a flat tax on income is good. I feel like people are being double and triple taxed when it comes to, my personal income from my business, and then I got to get taxed on my business, and then I have to pay taxes when I purchase things. I feel like there's just too much taxes. I think governments should be a lot smaller, and that's something that I feel very, very strongly about. Now, going back to the homeless population, what I think is really important is to have something like a makeshift camp, like the military usually has when they're out overseas, or they have these different like stuff set up, or FEMA camps and during disaster times. I think some kind of I feel like we should house the homeless, and I think the best way to do it, to have kind of like a tent city where it's ran by individuals that have cultivated themselves in a way where they've rehabilitated themselves. Now they want to give back, and these individuals are taking care of others. We have, all the medical facilities that they need to have people, go through their withdrawals and then get completely clean. They have programs where individuals come into these camps and to work these individuals, or that maybe they cart them out to different facilities and different offices for them to get prepared to clean up, their drug abuse, to clean up their appearance, to get new clothes. And these people get, full three meals a day. They have clean water, running facilities for bathrooms, able to do whatever they need to do to get these individuals back into society and into our communities and being a part of the everyday American life. Now, I think we can't do that without paying people a reasonable wage. I think we can't do that without backing the dollar. I don't think we can do that without reducing taxes. Because the only reason that taxes are now up to 40%. So like on a business, I don't know what business taxes are for businesses, but I know they're very, very high. Business tax. Average America. Average is 24%. I still feel like that's really high. But then what about these companies that are doing hundreds of billions of dollars? Now, what's really interesting about the government is they want to tax these individuals as a fair, pay their fair share. Again, this is why I believe very strongly in a flat tax, because it's not about, who's big or who's small, because I think that these individuals should start paying these workers, especially all the way down to the janitors who clean their toilets or not. I feel like they should be paid in a way where they can reflect doing the best they possibly can at their job. So I think having these facilities will not only clean up the streets and stuff like that, get these tents off of the streets, but then giving them the services and the things that they need to reintegrate them back into society. Now, whether that's a good plan or whether that's a bad plan, I mean, we aren't going to know until somebody tries to execute and see what happens. Obviously, we want to make that as much voluntary as possible. And then obviously, if there's, chronic homelessness, chronic drug abuse, and, overdoses, obviously they need to step in and they need to court order stuff like that. But for the most part, obviously volunteer. How that would work, I don't know. I really don't, but I really believe that there needs to be something done about the homelessness issue. And we need to do something sooner rather than later, especially when it comes to places like California, where it's just basically a transient state where everybody who is homeless is kind of going to that state because it's tolerated and it's allowed. But I seriously digress. Well, what else? So I think it's important to do as much self-help that you can. And obviously, if you need more, be able to get paid enough where you can actually take care of that. Now, when I was at the point where I was struggling with my previous employer, I really needed some more mental strength, and I needed some more help when it came to thinking good thoughts and to being positive. I got to the point where it was really, really bad. And what sucks is that, we went to start doing counseling, we were told one price. We were told, I'm not going to say who it is. I don't want to oust them, but this is the reality of the mental health stuff, is that my previous employer gave me 3 free opportunities to go and do it for 3 times. Now, most people, need this for multiple sessions. They need it for multiple months to kind of get back to where they were before. So I think saying, oh, we'll pay for your first 3 sessions is very disingenuous, but I do appreciate that they at least gave me that, even though, they kind of put me in that position, unfortunately, by their actions. And so when we went to this certain company and this certain individual, we clicked right away. We clicked right away. I felt like it was going really good. So I did my first 3 sessions, and then it came down to paying. At that time I didn't have a job anymore. So, paying $50 out of pocket once a week seemed pretty good for me. And at that point I was like, well, if it's only $50, maybe I can up that for twice a week. Again, that's $400 a month, but I kind of need that right now until I feel like I can kind of feel like I'm myself again. And so I'm just going to be upfront and candid with you guys. And so when I went through that, they basically said, oh, well, we can't have you pay $50. We have to actually pay you the full amount unless you qualify for this particular thing where you can pay that $50 amount. And so I applied for it. And even though I didn't have a position at that time, I was out of work. They denied our claim that we were in hardship and to them, we were making too much quote unquote money. So we had to pay the full amount, which was $150 a session. So that would be $600 a month rather than $400. And then with me wanting to do 2 sessions a week until I got to the point where I felt comfortable again, that skyrocketed up to $1,200 a month for 2 sessions a week. I hope I did that math correctly. I'm sure somebody will probably tell me if I'm wrong or not. But at that point, I was like, I'm not willing, like that. I wasn't willing to pay another mortgage, basically, for my mental health. And unfortunately, I just had to basically work through it myself. I mean, thank God I have a wonderful wife who supported me through it. I know it was very difficult for her. And we did get through it, and we did get better. And, we're much happier now, even though we're still at that point where we're not, we're barely making the bills. We're barely, paying our credit cards back, student loans and stuff like that. We're basically not going in the negative, basically is where we're at right now. Whether that changes or not, I don't know. But this is where I think it's really important, because a lot of the stressors that are happening right now are due to, low income. They're due to too much debt. Like that's the biggest issues that are happening in marriages right now, where the divorce rate is so dang high. What's the divorce rate right now? Divorce rate in America. Okay, give me a percentage. This doesn't help. They're saying 4 out of 1,000. Oh, 1,000 people. Okay, that's not helpful. Divorce rate. Stats on the divorce rate in America for 2022. Divorce rate in the U.S. is 2.3 persons per 1,000. Okay, but what about out of divorces among people aged 50 plus years are rising? So people are getting married later in life. Fewer couples choose to marry than pre-1990. Divorce rate, that is the third highest we are the third highest in the world. Wow. Because marriage used to mean something back in the day. Around 6,300 630,000 divorces took place in the U.S. in 2020. During peak of COVID-19, the number of divorces fell by 12%. Wow. Remarriage increases the risk of divorce. Because at that point, it becomes habitual. Like, once you get divorced, often get divorced again. Around 58% of U.S.-born adults decide to marry again after the first marriage ends in divorce. The percentage of the foreign-born U.S. citizens going into a second marriage after the first divorce slightly lower at 51%. Wow. Average length of a marriage in the U.S. is just shy of 20 years. Wow. That blows my mind, you guys, because here's the thing. If you give people an out, more than likely they're going to take an out. This is why I think it's really important to not give people handouts rather than, give them a leg up. I think that's a really big difference. And I think, marriage should be something indefinite. Like, once you get married, you're married to that person for the rest of your life. So choose wisely. I think that's something that's really important. I think a lot less people will get divorced if they know and understand that once they marry that person, that's it. You get that one marriage. You can separate yourselves and you can not be married anymore. That's up to you. But if it's like a definite thing that once you get married, that's it. That's the only person you get to marry for the rest of your life. I think people would look at it differently. I think people would look at marriage differently if these young men and young women that are getting married, very young in life, wait until after they are married to have sex and start, producing children. I think it'd be really interesting if people will wait until after they graduate high school. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a thing when it comes to things about God and religion and stuff. Like, it could be definitely a secular thing. I think people will bond more to each other and probably stay together longer if they wait to have sex until after they're married. I think the over sexualization of children in film and in books, and in trying to teach children more about sex even younger, I think is definitely attributing to a lot of this. I think the government and I think schools need to get out of the sex and race business, and I think they should just teach kids about history, the objective history, the true history, not just, we're going to give, this is what bugs me. Like, there was an article that I read a while back, or did I read it or did I hear it on a podcast? I don't remember which one, but basically there was a school that was teaching children about critical race theory, CTR. And basically the teachers would allow these children to separate themselves. So they would separate the white or the colored, the non-white children and the white children. And basically they would allow the non-white children to yell racial slurs, to cuss, and to, say derogative things towards them, and basically not allow them to stick up for themselves. And this was in the name of equality. This is in the name of equal outcome. This is in the name of getting back at everyone for the atrocities of the past. And this is why I think it's really important that, we shouldn't be responsible for the sins of our fathers. And we should be, judged by our merit alone. If we're good people, then we're good people. And if we're bad people, then we're bad people. I mean, I think that's, it's a simplistic thing. And I know life is more gray than black and white. I really do understand that. But what's really important is to kind of figure out what your core values are. I think it's really important to kind of figure out where you're at on these different fronts when it comes to sex, when it comes to race. I think you should have an idea of, where you're at on these different things, because I think it'll definitely open your eyes of honestly the hilarity of it all. That's why a lot of times you hear me laugh when I'm talking about these different articles and stuff, because I still can't believe in 2022 we're still talking about race. I still think it's quite hilarious in 2022 we're still talking about the differences or the not so differences between men and women and boys and girls. And sex can be changed with a knife, and hormones. Like it just baffles me we're still talking about this today. And I hope that we get to the point where we go, okay, we should start agreeing on the things that are objectively, scientifically, and inherently true about things. And, maybe we'll get to that point, but I don't know where we're going to go at from here with the internet and with it just getting more and more difficult to separate truth from lies, to separate propaganda from journalism, to separate the news, from ideologies being perpetuated. Where does this go for movies? Unfortunately, movies are just in a terrible time right now, especially over the last, I would say 5 or 10 years. I thought it was, pretty bad towards the end of the mid 2000s or 2010s. But now that we're in 2022, man, television shows and movies are they're hard to find good ones. They were just talking about this on Joe Rogan's podcast with Suzanne Santos. They were talking about how difficult it is to find good film, good TV series, good shows in general, because it's all centered and based around race and sex and ideology instead of just telling a good story. And from my family to yours, good night. Today's video is sponsored by viewers like you, so thank you. If we earned your subscription today, don't forget to hit that red subscribe button, click that damn bell, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss a content release. The best way to support the channel is to like this video, share it with family and friends, and don't forget to leave a comment down below. Send all of your topic ideas, articles, and video links to theperiodicreview@gmail.com. All of our links are in the description down below.